Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction for the Indianapolis Colts at the Miami Dolphins in their Week 16 matchup played December 27, 2015. These two AFC teams were going at it. They used to be division rivals before realignment, and they actually have some shared history as Don Shula had coached the Colts, and he also, of course, coached the Dolphins to the only perfect season, and this was on a day where the 72 Dolphins popped the champagne, but with the 2015 Dolphins also come away with the win on the same day that the Panthers lost their first game of this 2015 season. Well, we're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And to start things off, the Colts got the ball first. They punted after 8 plays, and then the Dolphins would take over, and they would end up getting tackled in the end zone. Tannehill goes down. McGill gets the safety for the Colts, so it's 2-0 Indianapolis over Miami. So now the Colts would take over after the safety punt, and they would end up scoring with a 37-yard touchdown run by Frank Gore. Vinatieri, the future Hall of Famer, missed the extra point, and so it was 8-0 Colts over the Dolphins with 6 minutes still left in the first. So now the Dolphins would take over, and they would end up with an interception on this possession as they had gotten all the way down to the 3-yard line but lost 3 yards on a run by Miller, and 2 plays later Tannehill was picked off by Vontae Davis in the end zone. The Colts wouldn't turn it into any points as they went 3 and out on the possession that followed, and that was bring the first quarter to a close. And now the Dolphins would take over in the second quarter with the ball on their own 31 after the punt, and they would make another trip to the red zone, but this time they did come away with a touchdown as Lamar Miller scored on a 1-yard touchdown run, and they went for 2, but it was an incomplete pass by Tannehill looking for Parker, and so it was 8-6 after the failed 2-point attempt, as the Dolphins were now within 2 with the Colts up 8-6 with 8 minutes left before halftime. So now the Colts would take over, and they would go on a scoring drive of their own, capped off by Frank Gore's second touchdown of the first half. This one an 11-yard touchdown run. Vinatieri hit the extra point this time, and it was now 15-6 as the Colts led by 9 with less than 5 minutes left before the end of the half. The Dolphins would end up punting after 6 plays on their next possession, and the Colts would bring the first half to a close. So it's 15-6 at halftime with the Colts in the lead. The Dolphins would get the ball first in the second half, and they would end up punting after 5 plays. The Colts would punt on their first possession of the second half after 4 plays, and the Dolphins would put together a long drive as they went 64 yards in 13 plays, eating up 6.5 minutes, capped off by a 33-yard field goal by Andrew Franks that made it a 6-point game with the score Indianapolis 15, Miami 9 with less than 4 minutes still left in the third quarter. The Colts would end up punting after 6 plays on their next possession, and Miami would bring the third quarter to a close and open up the fourth, but they went 3 and out on the possession, and they would end up playing the ball back to the Colts. The Colts would now take over. They went on a decently long drive, 5.5 minutes, and that resulted in a 38-yard field goal by Adam Vinatieri as the Colts now led 18-9 as they pushed it back to a 9-point lead. And this was with 8.5 left to play. So now the Dolphins would take over, and they got down into field goal range, and they were right there in the red zone, but they could not get into the end zone. They got all the way down to the 2-yard line, but they would have to settle for a 20-yard field goal by Andrew Franks that made it a 6-point game with just over 5 minutes left with the score Indianapolis 18, Miami 12. The Colts then would punt after 6 plays on their next possession, and now Miami would take over on their own 20 after the punt with just under 3 minutes left to play, down by 6. A touchdown with an extra point could win the game, but on the first play of this possession, Tannehill was sacked by McGill, who was there for the safety earlier on in the first quarter, but here he comes with a big sack to make it 2nd and 19 at the 11. Landry would pick up 9 yards. He actually went over 100 catches on the season in this game, the first Miami Dolphins receiver to do so in franchise history. But here he was shy of the first down, but it was 3rd and 10 from the 20, and it would be a roughing the passer call that made it a first down as this game went to the 2-minute warning. So Miami still had life after that penalty against the Colts defense. They came out of the 2-minute warning with the ball on their own 35, and Tannehill scrambles 28 yards for the first down at the Colts 37. He then threw a pass to Miller for 7 yards to make it 2nd and 3 at the 30. Tannehill then went to Landry. He picked up 14 yards in the first down in the red zone at the Colts 16. But then he was sacked. Tannehill was sacked by Langford, and the Dolphins were forced to use their final timeout. Coming out of the timeout, it was now 2nd and 18 at the 24, less than a minute left to play. Tannehill goes to Landry. He picks up 19 yards, and it's 1st and goal at the 5. But then a pair of incomplete passes brought up 3rd and goal from the 5, and a 3rd incomplete pass in a row would lead to 4th and goal at the 5. And Tannehill was sacked by Robert Mathis, and that's a turnover on downs, and all that was left to do was for Charlie Whitehurst to take a knee in the victory formation as the Colts hold on to win this one 18-12. Whitehurst, of course, came in the second quarter as Hasselbeck had left the game for the 4th straight week in a row, but Whitehurst coming off the bench and coming up big time for the Colts. Not doing a lot stat-wise, but doing enough for them to get the win. Of course, it was the defense of Indianapolis that really sealed this victory. Of course, coming up with some big sacks down the stretch. Of course, that huge sack by Mathis right there at the end of the game as the Colts keep their playoff hopes alive by a slim margin. The Texans also won in this day, and so they're going to need the Texans to lose next week, and they got to win for them to be able to get in, but they are still technically alive. And Matt Hasselbeck, he started off the game 8 for 15, 99 yards passing before leaving in the second quarter. Charlie Whitehurst came in and was 9 for 14 for just 78 passing yards in this game, but it was Frank Gore who really was getting the job done. He had only 15 carries, but he had 85 yards and 2 touchdowns rushing in this game. He also had 2 catches for 10 yards, which gave him 95 total yards in the game. T.Y. Hilton, 4 catches for 64 yards. Andre Johnson had 3 catches for 39 yards. And for Miami, Ryan Tannehill, 26 for 38, 329 passing yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. He also had that rush for 28 yards. Lamar Miller, 15 carries for just 31 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. And Jarvis Landry, 7 catches for 111 yards. Devontae Parker, 4 catches for 93 yards. And Lamar Miller had 5 catches for 36 yards, which gave him 67 total yards on the day. Look at the kickers in this game. Adam Vinatieri, 1 for 1 on the field goals, 1 for 2 on the extra points. Andrew Franks, 2 for 2 on the field goals, did not attempt an extra point. And for the Colts on defense, Vonta Davis came up with a huge interception in the end zone. And then Langford, 2 sacks. Robert Mathis also had 2 sacks. And McGill had 2 sacks, one of which was for a safety. So give me 2 sacks, give me 2 sacks, give me 2 sacks more. That's what they did there on defense for the Colts. And for the Dolphins in this game on defense, Moore had a sack and Ndamukong Suh had a sack. Let me look at the team stats. 22 first downs for Miami, 20 first downs for Indianapolis. On third down, the Colts were 6 of 12, 50% conversion rate. The Dolphins 6 of 15, just 40% conversion rate. They went for it once on fourth, did not convert. We look at total net yards, 361 for Miami, 268 for Indy. And on the ground, the Colts netted 100 yards, the Dolphins 82. And through the air, the Dolphins netted 279, but Tannehill was sacked 6 times for a total loss of 50 yards. The Colts netted 168 while allowing 2 sacks for a loss of 9 total yards. penalties in this game, 9 against the Dolphins, 6 against the Colts, but the Colts had 60 penalty yards versus 50 penalty yards for Miami. Then we look at the red zone, 1 for 1 for the Colts, 100%, although they only made the one trip. But the Dolphins, they made 5 trips, but they only had 1 red zone touchdown, so the same amount of red zone touchdowns, but 4 more trips, as the Dolphins just 20% in the red zone, as they failed to capitalize, as the Colts defense was coming up clutch in those red zone stops. They turned the red zone into the dead zone. But in the time of possession, 32 minutes, 49 seconds for Miami, 27 minutes, 11 seconds for the Colts. And the Colts, there's a team that at the beginning of the season you thought they were going to be an offensive juggernaut, but they were not at all this year, and not in this game by any stretch of the imagination, as they got it done old school with defense and with a strong running game, although they really didn't run the ball that much, but it really was their defense that came up big. And they did bend, but they did not break, as they come up with big stops in the red zone. They kept letting the Dolphins get into the red zone, but they kept stopping them. So they only allowed that 1 red zone touchdown. They were coming up with turnovers and sacks and forcing turnovers on downs and just doing an excellent job on defense to keep the Colts' playoff hopes alive. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and having a great week and having a great weekend and enjoying all the sports.